here takes precedence. I don't know how we can verify that someone whose face is covered is actually taking the oath that the law requires of them.
Immigration Minister Jason Kenney has announced a new requirement when becoming a Canadian citizen. From now on, anyone who wears a veil or the niqab must remove the face covering when they swear allegiance to this country. The move has been met with some swift criticism and accusations that Ottawa is stepping on religious rights. Rahil Raza is an author and interfaith consultant. Maryam Dadabhoy is a spokesperson for the Canadian Council on American Islamic Relations, both in our studio to talk about this. Certainly it had immediate reaction. This issue has been bubbling up in so many different places, not the least of which is the Supreme Court. But Rahil, let me get your first reaction to this.
Bravo. I think this is long overdue and it is an excellent decision. And I applaud Jason Kenney for having made this into law, because now there is clarity. So while there is no requirement in Islam religiously for a woman to cover her face, there is a requirement in the faith to follow the law of the land where we live. And so I think that this gives clarity to leaders, and hopefully they will impart this to the community to say that if you want to embrace Canada, and taking a citizenship oath is all about embracing Canadian values of transparency, accountability, communication, then follow the law of the land.
What about trampling on religious rights at that
Well,
stage?
it is not religion. That's what I said. And this is not just me saying it. Sheikh Tantawi, who is the highest Sunni cleric at Al-Azhar, has said, he said this about 3 years ago when this debate first came up, that the niqab and the burqa are not a religious requirement, and it is nowhere in the Quran.
Well, there are many different interpretations about niqab. Just as some people view it's not part of the religious faith, other people believe it is a part of their faith. So that's a different issue. The issue here is that this ruling is troubling on many levels. The first of which is that it is a direct violation of the Canadian Charter of Rights, which allows individuals to hold their personal religious convictions and practice those beliefs. And it is also a direct contradiction to a statement that the Prime Minister's office released in 2009, if I can just quote, in an open and democratic society like Canada, individuals are free to make their own decisions regarding their personal apparel and to adhere to their own customs or traditions of their faiths or beliefs. And this was 2009 when Harper had a minority government. Fast forward 2 years later, now they have a majority government, they're singing a different song. And there's also, it's also troubling on another level. Since the last I heard, Canada was a democratic society. Since when does its democracy start interpreting and dictating its citizens' religions for them? If these people are convinced that it is part of their faith, and I know women who wear the niqab and who are 100% convinced it is part of their faith, who are we to come and tell them
What does it mean to people? Okay, let me ask you this. For someone who really believes, personal religious conviction, that they need to wear this niqab covering their face,
yes,
what would it mean to them to be told for that one ceremony to please take it off? What does that mean to them?
Well, it's making them choose between adhering to their religion, which is protected under the Canadian Charter of Rights. And
I understand
also,
that, but in terms of, like, where is the imposition for that moment? Is there, like, how does that work? Is there embarrassment? Is there...
Well, yeah, I mean, it's unnecessary. When you go into an oath ceremony, I had my ceremony 2 years ago. I moved here from America. I became a Canadian citizen. You have to verify your identity before going into the courtroom, which is not the issue. You can verify your identity, go in the courtroom. When you enter the courtroom, it's a fairly large room. There's about 100 people there. For them to question the sincerity of a Muslim woman in a niqab, are you really saying the oath? The woman has gone through all the other venues and efforts to become a citizen. They've taken the test, they've paid their fees, so why are you doubting their intention there? And it's also a very large courtroom, as I mentioned. How is the judge able to verify that everybody in that room is actually saying it? Because some are sitting towards the back, some are being blocked by people.
And there aren't that many people who choose to wear the niqab.
Well, this is exactly the point. If it was a religious requirement for Muslim, then half of 1.2 billion Muslims would be covering their faces. So this argument, I mean, they're trying to pass this off under the Constitution. When this first came up about the niqab, the religious leaders said, it's religious, it's religious. Then this religious cleric, who is very senior, gave a religious edict saying it's not religious, and then they backpedaled and said it's culture and under multiculturalism. So yes, what kind of excess cultural baggage are we talking about here? It's organizations like CAIR that need to educate and empower the people of the community to help them understand that this is not religious, instead of digging their heels in and making this an us versus them issue. Canadian citizenship oath, which I also took very proudly 22 years ago, it's about embracing Canada. We came here on our own free will, and Canadian values, as far as I know in 22 years, don't mean a face mask. And why are we talking about double standards here? The Constitution also speaks about freedom within reasonable limits. My freedom to wave my fist is okay, but if it comes in contact with your nose, that's not so reasonable. Where does a face mask become reasonable? And let's not call it anything else. It is a face mask. It comes in the way of communication, transparency, accountability, and in my understanding of Canadian values, of human values, a face mask is not reasonable by a long extent. I could say that my religious belief says that I should worship a duck. Does that make it religious? When we have a religious cleric, a senior religious leader saying it is not religious, and when it does not exist in the Quran, which is the holy book of 1.2 billion Muslims, how are we trying to pass this off as religious?
But to clarify,
so now we have a ruling that says we've got a law. We've got a law that says women should uncover their face when taking the oath.
Fair enough, Raheel, and I know we could debate this for quite a while, and it's such an interesting debate. Like in the 3-4 words.
Well, just to clarify, there is no senior like a pope figure for this Muslim community. There are many different scholars, and that is one opinion. But there are many other scholars who have the opinion that it is a religious obligation. It is an obligation upon women. So, so you cannot just paint all Muslims by one sheikh's.
And there is no way we can properly debate in such a short period of time, but it's a spirited beginning, and thank you both for coming in.